Welcome to today's broadcast of North Idaho College Public Forum. The crew is comprised of NIC television students, and your moderator is North Idaho College political scientist Tony Stewart.
One of our favorite topics on this program is to interview students from other countries so we can talk about international activities and social functions and life in various countries around the world. And we're very fortunate in North Idaho every year to have students that come from many parts of the world. And Skip and Dick Cook, who are from Hayden Lake, are always very involved with helping with the exchange program, and we're very grateful to them for bringing these students to North Idaho and allowing us to interview them on the program. We have two very special guests today. First, our guest from Denmark is Karsten Andersen, and we're very happy to have him here every year. We have some students from Denmark. And we also have today Mark Botke, who is from West Berlin, Germany, and we also have students almost every year from Germany. We're pleased to have both of you. Welcome to the United States, welcome to North Idaho, and especially welcome to our program. And I'm very happy to have our regular panelist, Steve Shink, who is Dean of College Relations and Development at North Idaho College, and we shall ask Steve to commence the questioning.
Thank you, Tony, and let me begin by welcoming both of you here too. We're delighted to have you with us at North Idaho College today. Mark, let me start with you, if I may. I'm going to ask you both to tell us a little bit about yourselves.
About myself? Well, I'm 18 years old, and I decided to go to America last summer because I want to learn something about the American life, because I think what you learn over media or a newspaper is not that what I expect, and so that's the reason why I decided to come over to live in an American host family and go to an American school.
And you're a student at Coeur d'Alene High School, is that correct?
Yes.
How long will you be staying with us?
6 months. I will go back between June or July.
And during that time, where have you been placed in Coeur d'Alene High School, and how does that compare to where you would be back in Germany?
Well, I'm supposed to go for 2 more years to school in Germany, so this is only more an experience, because in Germany, if you want to make your graduation, you're supposed to stay the last 2 years without interruption.
Oh, I see. And you're studying at the senior level at Coeur d'Alene High School?
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Karsten, how about you? Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm 17 years old, and I live in Denmark, and it's kind of a small city. It's about 5,000 inhabitants, and I choose to come to America because I would like to learn about Americans, see how they live like, because I like to travel, and the language is exciting too.
And how long have you been in this country?
I've been here for 6 months now.
And you're going to school where?
North Idaho Christian School.
And at what level are you studying there?
I'm studying at the senior level.
At the senior level. And where would you be in Denmark if you were still there at this time?
Oh, I'll be at the first semester of business school.
I see. Would that be after high school graduation? I see.
Yeah.
So there are some differences between the educational systems in your two countries. Not quite the same. Is that what I'm understanding? You were talking about 2 more years, and yet you're slightly older than Karsten is, and yet you would be starting what we would consider to be a college program in your country.
Yeah, you graduate at 9th grade, then you get out of the public school, and you can choose whatever you want to do.
One of the things I'm going to guess that you two are discovering about North Idahoans, and I don't think we're very much different from most of the rest of the country, is that we're notoriously uninformed about life in other countries. I wonder if you'd take just a second, each of you, and we can start with Mark again, to tell us a little bit about the cities that you live in and your countries as well.
Well, yes, you say that I'm living in West Berlin, and of course there's a big difference between West Berlin and especially Coeur d'Alene, because in whole Idaho has, I suppose, 1 million inhabitants, and only West Berlin we have 2 million inhabitants, and so of course there's a big difference between. And the country, it depends. Some parts of Germany are like Coeur d'Alene and surroundings. We have mountains, many mountains too, but especially in West Berlin and North Germany we have no mountains. So it's.
How large is the country in total, in population?
The population, I think it's about 56 or 57 million inhabitants. And so if you could try to compare Idaho and Germany, it's the same.
Karsten, how about you said you lived in a small town, about 5,000 people. Where is that in Denmark? And tell us a little bit more, if you would, please, about the country of Denmark.
Okay. Denmark is about 1/5 of Idaho's size, and there's about 5 million inhabitants. And the capital of Denmark is Copenhagen, and there's about 1.5 million there. And Denmark's it's a pretty flat country. There's not a lot of mountains, but you'll see a lot of forests and fields. There's a lot of crops, fields, and it's a pretty country, I think.
Thank you.
I want to continue on this line that Steve has been asking concerning some things about your country. There are always so many questions to ask, and our viewers would be interested if they were to go to your countries about some of these things. We've talked about the size of your country and the population, but let's talk about what the people do for a living. Karsten, I will start with you. Something about the economy, how people make their living. What are the major economic centers within your country? If you just take us through that, and what the capital of your country, where the money comes from mostly, and products and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think the main export of Denmark is crops, dairy products like milk, butter, and also meat, bacon, those kind of things. And but Denmark has to import a lot of things too, because we don't have any raw materials like iron, coal. We don't have anything, so we have to import from the United States, Sweden, and Norway, and Germany.
And what are some of the industries that you have when you import these raw materials?
Well, they produce hi-fi electronics and food. I think that's the basic things.
Mark, how about your country? I know it's much more diverse economically than Denmark.
Yeah, sure. We don't produce some food or something. We live from industry and produce some machines or something like this.
You're very heavy industry.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Can you be more specific? Some of the things that you produce.
That's a good question. I mean, most of the industry areas are in South Germany, and so I mean, I don't know the word in English, so I'm sorry.
Sure. Mercedes,
Mercedes.
Porsche.
Yes, for example.
Come to my mind.
Automobiles certainly is one of them.
Automobiles.
But you have, first of all, geographically, somewhat a larger country, and of course, it's been really being very effective in the international market and trade, both importing and exporting. I'd like to talk to both of you something about social life. And I know some people watching that maybe young people would have in mind. What do you do in your country that's, for social activity and sports and all those kind of things compared with here? Now that you've been here for some months, you're in a very good position to do that. I'll start with Karsten again, because we've had a little bit more discussion with this. Karsten, when you have time off from school, when school is over during the day or on the weekends or in the summer, just communicate with some of our young people to tell them what is social life like in Denmark. And also, I know you and I've had discussion about sports is very different there than in the United States.
Yeah. Well, a lot of young people, they have a job after school, and they earn their own spending money that way. And lots of young people do some sports too, like our national sport must be soccer. So lots of young people like to play soccer in summertime. And we don't have football, so that's a new thing. I think it'll come back. I think it'll come to Denmark sometimes because it looks like it's an interesting sport.
What other kind of sports, or team sports, or individual sports you have other than soccer?
Well, we do have windsurfing because Denmark there's a lot of water around Denmark, and sailing, and badminton, tennis, and golf. I think that's the same as over here.
Mm-hmm. Something that will be surprising, I guess, to some of our viewers, but others it will not be. You and I were talking yesterday about with the school systems, the public schools in this country, at the high school level in particular, and at the college level, that our sports are tied very closely to those educational institutions. We have team sports in basketball and football and baseball, wrestling and so forth, and it's an integral part of the school. Mm-hmm. And certain number of hours during that day, the students are actually, many of them participating in that, and they travel as a team. That's not the case in Denmark. Would you tell us how sports are really quite divorced from your school system?
Yeah, you'll find sports outside the schools, like in clubs and city leagues, and that's divided in varsity and junior varsity teams. So it's really up to the young people if they have to go on the clubs outside the school.
But it's not a part of the school. The school has nothing to do with that.
No.
It doesn't in any way interfere or affect the studies and the program of the school systems.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
That's up to the young people, if they want to.
But there's a separation as far as they're not involved as the institution.
That's right.
Mark, why don't you tell us about Germany, and the same question to you.
Yeah, it's the same like Denmark. The school is not that important that year, so if the school is over, there are not that lot of activities after school, and so if you want to do some sports, then you are supposed to go to a special organization, and it's a lot of money sometimes. So for instance, yes, tennis is at this moment very famous, for example, Boris Becker and Steffi Graf. And so, yes, but the same sports, but sports are not that important in Germany, especially in a big town like Berlin, so there are many more activities, so most of the people don't stay in an organization, or perhaps table tennis or football, not American soccer and something like this.
What are some of the other interests of young people in Germany, how they spend their time? Do a lot of students work after school?
No, most of the time, most of the people do not work after school. It's very unusual in Germany to work because your parents give you most of the time money. So if you become about 18 or 19, then most of the pupils in Germany become a job. It's only perhaps by you first graduate if you're 18 or 19, and so between this your parents will give you all the money you need. And activities, I mean, especially in Berlin, parties are very popular, and yes, go dancing and go to a disco or something like this.
Thank you. Steve Sheen.
Well, Mark, let me follow up on that a little bit too, if I may. What are some of your impressions of this country? Is it are the social activities and the people essentially very similar to the friends you left in West Germany?
Well, I think there's a big difference. For example, most of the Germans are very rude. So if you go to a German school, as we have many exchange students too, but most of them are not interested. They say, well, you're from America, and then, hi, how are you? But then it's not that important to us to talk to them, and so there's a big difference between Germany and America and the social life.
Have you found people to be very friendly here?
Sure, and I love this way. It's
good.
great.
I'm glad to hear that. You've only been here 6 weeks. Karsten's been here somewhat longer, and I'll ask the same question to Karsten in a minute. Have you had a chance to see much other than North Idaho at this time, and do you plan to do any traveling as part of your stay?
Yes, I visited a friend of mine in Seattle, and for spring break I'm going to Vancouver and something like this, yes. But Seattle is very interesting, I think, because of Space Needle or something like this. It's great.
Karsten, how about you? Have you found people here to be similar or dissimilar to the friends you left at home?
Oh, I feel that people over here are more friendly, usually more friendly because they kind of, in the school I'm in now, they care about you, and that's a good thing. In Denmark, the school, there's usually not the same friendship, and after school it's usually you have a lot of friends. You don't talk that much with your friends from the school.
So the friends that each of you have in your own countries are not necessarily friends you've made in school.
Nope.
They're more likely to be friends from outside school. That is very different than this country. What about you? You've been here for 6 months now. Have you had a chance to do any traveling?
Yeah, I went to Canada. That's a neat place too, I think.
Anything else on your agenda? Is there a place you'd really like to see before you leave?
Well, there's a lot of nice places I would like to go, of course, but I would like to go to California and see how that's like.
A question I always like to ask visitors from foreign countries, and I'll start with you, Karsten, is was there anything that you found particularly surprising? Anything that you came here with some kind of an impression of the United States, what you thought it was going to be like? What was most different when you got here?
Oh, I think the people were different because I thought that, they're gonna be, selfish and think about themselves, but people over here are pretty friendly and they help you with things.
How about you, Mark? Anything that was
the same with
very
me.
different?
The people, they are very friendly. Yes, they care about you, that's what he said. Or if you go to a store, say hello and talk to you. And so I never had here problems to make some new friends. I always came and said, how are you? Do you need some help or something like this? This is great. I love it.
And what did you think they were going to be like from the image you got in Germany of Americans?
This is a good question. I don't know.
But different?
Yes, it's different.
And how about a favorite place? And it doesn't necessarily have to be possible, but if you could go anywhere in the United States while you were here, if there was one thing you really wanted to see, what would it be?
Florida.
Florida. Anything in particular?
No, only want to see Florida.
Just Florida.
Yes.
I had the advantage, Steve, of meeting with our guests last night, and we had some discussion ahead of time, and they also talked in relation to what you're asking about what they miss from their own country, and what they've told you certainly what they like about this country. We're going to give them a chance to talk about anything that they would like to see changed also. But I will start with Mark this time first, and now that you've been here long enough, you and I were talking last night about, obviously there's things about one's country and family and so forth that one really enjoys, and now you're away from that for a good period of time. What do you miss most while you're in the United States?
I mean, it really depends. Sometimes, of course, I think every exchange is sometimes a little bit homesick, and so sometimes you miss your really good friends, because I have some friends in Germany for about 10 or 12 years, and so there's a different, of course, if I talk to a friend I had 12 or 15 years or some friends here. And so, yes, I love my cat, for example, and I miss my cat.
Yeah. Karsten, how about you?
Well, I guess it's a little bit the same as Mark, I miss my parents sometimes, my friends, because everything is different over here, and the food is also a little bit different, so sometimes, you would like to eat some Danish food.
Also, you talked about, even though a lot of them are the same way, I'm going to ask Mark to pull his mic up. I'm afraid we're losing your mic there. There, thank you.
I see.
But
Okay.
Karsten, you eat a lot of the same foods that we do here, but they're prepared different. One of the things that's really famous about the whole Scandinavian area is your pastries and all the wonderful sweets.
Yeah.
I've had those when I was there. They're a little bit different they are here, aren't they?
Well, I think they're a little bit more sweet, Danish food is always, I think it's a little bit more fat and also a little bit more sweet. They don't think that much about cholesterol and fat and sugar and all that.
You'd indicated that the American people, your impression was that we're much more health conscious now than people in Europe about what we eat. That's a really interesting point. Would you like to elaborate upon that?
Well, I think it's a good idea, though. People think about their health, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. People go out and do exercises sometimes.
I think the show's been very positive for us. Our very kind guests have talked about how friendly Americans are and that they're health conscious. So maybe our image is quite positive with our friends from Europe. Mark, I just got to get into a question as a political scientist that I've been wanting to ask throughout the whole program. I know you were home in West Berlin when the really political revolution hit all of Europe. It's very exciting what's going on throughout Eastern Europe, and with what we call the wall coming down and opening up. Would you first of all tell us what was your personal experience when that happened as a native German, and then after that I'd like to get you to talk about what you think may happen in the future. But if you don't mind giving us a very personal reaction of how you felt about that experience.
I mean, this is a feeling, it's very hard to describe, because I sat in my room with a friend of mine and we heard it in the news, and we drove immediately to the Berlin Wall and saw the first people from East Germany coming to the wall, and they cried and they shouted and say freedom, and so I cried too, because it's incredible and it's very hard to describe. It was fantastic. Really, it's great. Yes, and about the future, for example, about the reunification, it's a very interesting question, because I remember the time the wall came down, everybody in Germany, in East and West Germany, said, no, we don't want to have a reunification, but now they're talking about reunification very, very soon. And so my personal opinion, I think, well, East Germany needs our support, but I prefer to become more two independent states, like, for example, Germany and Austria.
But isn't there, from what we hear on the news anyway, a really strong feeling in both East Germany and West Germany of reunification? There's a lot of support among the population. Certainly the political leaders are getting together, and I would assume that in the democratic West Germany, that the political leaders are following the sentiment of the people, because they're moving much more rapid than anyone thought toward reunification. So isn't there an awful lot of support for reunification, even though you do not prefer that yourself?
I mean, you can say this is a part of Germany, of course, but we have many friends in East Germany, and they are a whole different, and so because the education of them are totally different, and so, I mean, I'm a little bit afraid of if we become a very big force, if East and West Germany become reunified again. So that's I'm a little bit scared of.
But is it your prediction it is going to happen?
I suppose that it's coming very, very soon. I think if I'm going back to Germany, there will be no longer East and West Germany.
Thank you. I want to ask Karsten a question on that, and then we'll go back to Steve. I know there's talk about what's happening in East Germany and East and West Germany and all Eastern Europe, in Western Europe, in Denmark and other countries, and coming down to England and France and all. What do you hear from home about what is happening in Eastern Europe?
Oh, you mean from my parents?
Yes.
Well, of course they say there's no big changes, but I've heard about West Germany and East Germany through American television, those things. So I think that's the most changes I've heard about in a long time.
Yes. Steve Sheen.
Tony usually asks the political questions, and I ask the non-political ones. I couldn't help but think, as we talked, that in this country anyway, young people your ages, I think more now than maybe 10 or 15 years ago, perhaps like it was back in the 50s and 60s, but today I get the feeling that young people are very much concerned about their futures, about what they're going to be doing, how they're going to earn a living, what their lives will be like after they establish themselves. Is that a feeling in your countries? Is there that pressure on young people to find a career and to be successful? Karsten?
Yeah, I think most young people think about the career, the future.
Mark?
Yes, I think so.
Well, let me be a little bit more specific. 5 years from now, where do each of you see yourselves being? What do you think you're going to be doing?
5 years ago?
5 years from now, 5 years in the future.
Oh. Well, I will finish school in 2 years, and then I would like probably to study psychology. So I suppose I'm still studying.
Would your eventual goal then be to become a psychologist?
I never thought of this before. I would first like to start to study psychology, and then let's see.
So you're thinking more in terms of what do I want to learn as opposed to what kind of a job do I have when I finish. How about you, Karsten?
Well, I could see myself in business. Business with United States, Germany, and England. I would like to be in that kind of business.
And the business college you talked about at the beginning of the show is a good step for you to get in that kind of a career?
That'll be a good step, yeah.
What do your parents do, Karsten?
My mom, she's a housewife, and my dad, he has his own company. He's producing facades and front of buildings, and that's it.
So he is a businessman?
Yeah.
And Mark, how about your family?
My mom is a nurse, and my father owns a cafe.
Oh, I see.
I'm going to ask Karsten this question because we were talking last night about all the things they like, but they also have oftentimes some suggestions for us. Karsten, now that you've been here a little while, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but what advice would you give to Americans about what we should or should not do?
Oh, I think they should not sell all the buildings and property to foreign countries.
You think we're allowing too much investment of buying things in this country from other countries?
Yeah, I think that the United States, they sell a lot of the things to foreign countries. Just there, and they'll get a lot of money on the buildings, and they'll go to Japan or other countries.
What advice would you give us, Mark?
Well, I think sometimes the Americans a little bit selfish about their country. For example, I heard questions about, do you have hamburger or do you have cars in Germany, and didn't we buy Germany, and our country is the best country. I mean, these are only, of course, some few people, and of course we have those people in Germany too. So I mean, you can say generally too that you would like to give some advices.
We were talking yesterday too, and I know Karsten was mentioning to me that in this country, Steve, our young people spend a lot more time around the school than is true in their countries. Even after all the classes and practice and sports, that they return in the evening, of course, here for games, and a lot of functions are oriented around the school and with the parents. And that's not so true in Denmark. Karsten, would you like to talk a little bit about that experience? Was that surprising to you? And just give us your opinion on that.
Yeah, well, I came over here and families were much more closer than what I was used to, which I think is a good idea, and that's something I will try and get into my family in Denmark, because you usually don't spend I don't spend a lot of time with my family, which I think is wrong now, because since I've been over here I've learned that that's important.
So you have really been impacted or affected in that way,
Yeah.
that you're going to take back with you when you go home.
Hope so.
You may be teaching your parents, and you have one brother too, don't you?
Yeah, I have one brother.
Yeah. Mark, how would you react to this whole business of the school system and how we evolve it around the family?
Well, my parents in Germany, they were 6 years ago, and so I'm really not used to live with a family. It's sometimes a little bit different, but I like the way it's only, I'm really not used. My brother's 5 years older in Germany, and so he went out of our home 3 years ago, and so I'm only living with my mom. Yes, and about the school, yes, you said that in Germany most of my friends are not from my school, and so, but I like the way, and perhaps sometimes if I come back to Germany I would think about it and make some suggestions to people in Germany to do it like this way.
We're just about out of time, but I want to give you both a chance to promote your country on our program. When Americans come to your two countries, what would you suggest, real briefly, that you would suggest they do, or what should they see?
West Berlin.
West Berlin?
Yes, in my opinion, because I think this is a very interesting town, and there are so many different things you can see, and there are so many different people in school and in the whole town, so you can talk to a lot of different people.
Real diverse city.
Yes.
Yes. How about
Yeah.
Denmark?
I don't know, it's a difficult question, because there's a lot of things they could see, but I would see where Hans Christian Andersen lived in Odense. That's a pretty neat place.
And you also, although you have a democratic society, you also have a monarchy system, and maybe the palace where the queen lives. And
Yeah, that's a pretty neat place too.
yes, although you have a parliament and a prime minister, democratic system. I wish we could continue this questioning. It's been so much fun having you here, and I have the pleasure of having some time with our international students through the Cooks, and I will get a chance to carry on with this, but I want our viewers to get to hear about our guests and some of the things, and you've been most informative. And Steve, thank you for your questions. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed our program, and I would like to invite you to be with us again next week at this same time, when we will discuss an important issue. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
North Idaho College Public Forum can be seen at the same time each week over this station. This production was videotaped earlier by an NIC student crew for viewing at this more appropriate time.